Best quotes by Chanakya. Foolishness is indeed painful, and verily so in youth, but more painful by far than either is being obliged in another person's house. Agni is worshipable person for the twice born, the Brahman for the other castes, the husband for the wife, and the guest who comes for food at the midday meal for all. Even as a single good tree with fragrant flowers can spread the fragrance in the entire forest, so also the entire family or clan shines by a son possessing good qualities. When a man has no strength left in him, he becomes a sadhu. One without wealth acts like a brahmachari. A sick man behaves like a devotee of the god. And when a woman grows old, she becomes devoted to her husband. A woman does not become holy by offering charity, by observing hundreds of fasts, or by sipping sacred water, as by sipping the water used to wash her husband's feet. Constant travel brings old age upon a man. A horse becomes old by being constantly tied up. Lack of sexual contact with her husband brings old age upon a woman, and garments become old through being left in the sun. It is better to be without a kingdom than to rule over a petty one. Better to be without a friend than to befriend a rascal. Better to be without a disciple than to have a stupid one. And better to be without a wife than to have a bad one. Swans live wherever there is water and leave the place when the water dries up. Let not a man act so, and comes and goes as he pleases. The house in which the lotus feet of Brahmins are not washed, in which Vedic mantras are not loudly recited, and in which the holy rites of sacrificial offerings to the Supreme Lord and offerings to the ancestors are not performed, is like a crematorium. Trees on a river bank, a woman in another man's house, and kings without counselors go without doubt to swift destruction. If men should always retain the state of mind they experience when hearing religious instruction, when present at a crematorial ground, and when in sickness, then who could not attain liberation? Learn one thing from a lion, one from a crane, 4 a cock, 5 from a crow, 6 from a dog, and 3 from an ass. Those blessed souls are certainly elevated who, while crossing the ocean of life, take shelter of a genuine Brahman who is likened unto a boat. They are unlike passengers aboard an ordinary ship that runs the risk of sinking. The power of a king lies in his mighty arms, that of a Brahman in his spiritual knowledge, and that of a woman in her beauty, youth, and sweet words. A good wife is one who serves her husband in the morning like a mother does, loves him in the day like a sister does, and pleases him like a prostitute in the night. For all the trees there is fear from strong winds. For the trees is fear from strong winds. For the lotus there is fear from winter. For the mountains there is fear from Vajrayuddha of Indra. For the good and noble souls, there is fear from the evil ones. O Ketki flower, serpents live in your midst. You bear no edible fruits. Your leaves are covered with thorns. You are crooked in growth. You thrive in mud, and you are not easily accessible. Still, you are exceptional fragrance. You are as dear to kinsmen as others. Hence, a single excellence overcomes a multitude of blemishes. As centesimal droppings will fill a pot, so also are knowledge, virtue, and wealth gradually obtained. Treat your kid like a darling for the first 5 years. For the next 5 years, scold them. By the time they turn 16, treat them like a friend. Your grown-up children or your best friends. We should carefully scrutinize that place upon which we step, having it ascertained to be free from filth and living creatures like insects, etc. We should drink water which has been filtered through a clean cloth. We should speak only those words which have the sanction of the Shastras, and do that act which we have carefully considered. An egoist can be won over by being respected. A crazy person can be won over by allowing him to behave in an insane manner. And a wise person can be won over by the truth. Even a pandit comes to grief by giving instruction to a foolish disciple, by maintaining a wicked wife, and by excessive familiarity with the miserable. Water seeping into the earth is pure, and a devoted wife is pure. The king who is benefactor of his people is pure, and pure is the Brahman who is contented. There is always plenty for the tiller of the soil. There is always happiness for the wealthy, free from disease. It is daily celebration in the home of one who has a loving wife. There are two ways to get rid of thorns and wicked persons: using footwear in the first place, and the second, shaming them so they cannot raise their faces again, thus keeping them at a distance. The Brahman is like a tree. His prayers are the roots, his chanting of the Vedas are the branches, and his religious acts are the leaves. Consequently, effort should be made to preserve his roots, for if the roots are destroyed, there can be no branches or leaves. A Brahmin's strength is in his learning. A king's strength is in his army. A Vaishya's strength is in his wealth. And a Shudra's strength is in his attitude of service. The wise man should restrain his senses like the crane and accomplish his purpose with due knowledge of his place, time, and ability. One who is in search of knowledge should give up the search of pleasure, and one who is in search of pleasure should give up the search of knowledge. He whose actions are disorganized has no happiness either in the midst of men or in a jungle. In the midst of men, his heart burns by social contacts, and his helplessness burns him in the forest. A man who encounters the following three is unfortunate: the death of his wife in his old age, the entrusting of money into the hands of relatives, and depending upon others for food. A person should not be too honest. Straight trees are cut fast and honest people are screwed first. The learned are envied by the foolish, rich men by the poor, chaste women by the adulteresses, and beautiful ladies by ugly ones. For the competent, what is great burden? What is far away for those who work hard? What is a foreign country for the learned? Who is not one's own for one whose speech is laced with love? Scholarship and kingship can never be equated. A king is respected in his own kingdom, whereas a scholar is respected everywhere. To have ability for eating when dishes are ready at hand, to be robust and virile in the company of one's religiously wedded wife, and to have a mind for making charity when one is prosperous, are the fruits of no ordinary lives. Wise men should always bring up their sons in various moral ways. For children who have knowledge of Niti Shastra are well behaved become a glory to their family. He who desires sense gratification must give up all thoughts of acquiring knowledge, and he who seeks knowledge must not hope for sense gratification. How can he who seeks sense gratification acquire knowledge, and he who possesses knowledge enjoy mundane sense pleasure? The prostitute has to forsake a man who has no money, the subject a king that cannot defend him, the birds a tree that bears no fruit, and the guests a house after they have finished their meals. We should not feel pride in our charity, austerity, valor, spiritual knowledge, modesty, and morality, for the world is full of the rarest gems. What is the purpose of having a son who is neither learned nor devoted to God? It is useless to have a blind eye, which will only result in eye ache. Those parents who do not educate their sons are their enemies, for it is a crane among swans. So are ignorant sons in a public assembly. There is no poverty for industrious. Sin does not attach itself to a person practicing chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Those who are absorbed in silent contemplation of the Lord have no quarrel with others. They are fearless, who remain always alert. He who befriends a girl whose conduct is vicious, whose vision impure, and who is notoriously crooked is rapidly ruined. He whose hands are clean does not like to hold an office. He who desires nothing cares not for bodily decorations. He who is only practically educated cannot speak agreeably, and he who speaks out plainly cannot be a deceiver. There is no eye equal to learning. There is no penance equal to truth. There is no sorrow equal to desire or attachment. There is no happiness equal to renunciation or sacrifice. Old lady, why are you gazing downward? Has something of yours fallen on the ground? And she replies, O fool, can you not understand the pearl of my youth has slipped away? Offspring, friends, relatives flee from a devotee of the Lord, Yet, those who follow him bring merit to their families through their devotion. These five, the lifespan, the type of work, wealth, learning, and the time of one's death, are determined while one is in the womb. Accumulated wealth is saved by spending just as incoming fresh water is saved by letting out stagnant water. The heart of a woman is not united, it is divided. While she is talking with one man, she looks lustfully at another and thinks fondly of a third in her heart. Friendship between two equals flourishes. Service under a king is respectable. It is good to be business-minded in public dealings, and a handsome lady is safe in her own home. As a man who digs obtains underground water by use of a shawl, so the student attains the knowledge possessed by his preceptor through his service. Therefore, kings gather round themselves men of good families, for they never forsake them, either at the beginning, the middle, or the end. The wise, who discern the essence of things, have declared that the meat-eater is equal in baseness to 1,000 chandalas, and hence a yavana is the basest of the man. Indeed, there is no one more base. Even the man who has taught the spiritual significance of just one letter ought to be worshipped. He who does not give reverence to such a guru is born as a dog and 100 times, and at the last birth as a chandala. Those who are not satisfied with the enjoyment of wealth, food, and women have all passed away. There are others now passing away who have likewise remained unsatiated, and in the future, still others will pass away feeling themselves unsatiated. A father who is a chronic debtor, an adulterous mother, a beautiful wife, and an unlearned son are enemies in one's own home. By going to the den of a lion, pearls from the head of an elephant may be obtained, but by visiting the hole of a jackal, nothing but the tail of a calf or a bit of a hide of an ass may be found. One may know the four Vedas and the Dharma Shastras, yet if he has no realization of his own spiritual self, he can be said to be like a ladle which stirs all kinds of foods but knows not the taste of any. What is imperishable for that which is perishable loses that which is imperishable, and doubtlessly loses that which is perishable also. Contentment with little or nothing to eat, although one may have a great appetite, to awaken instantly, although one may be in deep slumber, unflinching devotion to the master, and bravery. These 6 qualities should be learned from the dog. Of what avail is a high birth if a person is destitute of scholarship? A man who is of low extraction is honored even by the demigods if he is learned. The moon is the adornment of the stars. Husband is the adornment of women. The king is the adornment of the earth. Learning is the adornment of all. Those who blaspheme Vedic wisdom, who ridicule the lifestyle recommended in the Shastras, and who deride men of peaceful temperament, come to grief unnecessarily. One whose knowledge is confined to the books, and whose wealth is in possession of others, can neither his knowledge nor wealth when the need for them arises. What is there to be enjoyed in the world of Lord Indra for one whose wife is loving and virtuous, who possesses wealth, who has well-behaved son endowed with good qualities, and who has grandchildren born of his children? There is considerable distance between the body and the good qualities. The body can die any minute, but the good qualities stay for many ages. Persons are remembered for their good qualities even after their death, not for their bodily features. A blade of grass is light, cotton is lighter, and a beggar is infinitely lighter still. Why then does not the wind carry him away? Because it fears that he may ask alms of him. Mental dirt cannot be washed away, even by 100 baths in the sacred waters. Just as a wine pot cannot be purified even by evaporating all the wine by fire. The four greatest enemies of a man are the father who has taken a loan, the characterless mother, the beautiful but promiscuous wife, and the stupid child. The woman who fasts and observes religious vows without the permission of her husband shortens his life and goes to hell. Brass is polished by ashes, copper is cleaned by turmeric, a woman by her menses, and a river by its flow. Union in privacy with one's wife, boldness, storing away useful items, watchfulness, and not easily trusting others. These 5 things can be learned from a crow. The unthinking spender, the homeless urchin, the quarrelmonger, the man who neglects his wife and is heedless in his actions, all will soon come to ruination. Extreme of anger, harsh speech, poverty, enmity with relatives, association with evil men, service of people from not so good a family. These are the marks of people living in hell. It is better to die than to preserve this life by incurring disgrace. The loss of life causes but a moment's grief, but disgrace brings grief every day in one's life. That thing which is distant, that thing which appears impossible, and that which is far beyond our reach can be easily attained by religious austerity, for nothing can surpass austerity. Who realizes all the happiness he desires? Everything is in the hands of the God. Therefore, one should learn contentment. As long as your body is healthy and under control and death is distant, try to save your soul. When death is imminent, what can you do? A man's descent may be discerned by his conduct, his country by his pronunciation of language, his friendship by his warmth and glow, and his capacity to eat by his body. The world's biggest power is the youth and beauty of a woman.